I was about 5 minutes from leaving. The kind of 5 minutes that stretched into 20, where you politely nod through someone's retelling of a vacation you didn't go on and don't care about, while holding a glass of lukewarm Prosecco and pretending you're not just counting the steps to the door. That was me. New Year's Eve, standing in someone else's house, surrounded by couples I barely knew, laughing at jokes I didn't hear. We were at my wife's friend Amanda's place, a renovated townhouse downtown, all exposed brick and scented candles, the kind of party where everyone's overdressed and underinterested. Kim had insisted we go, said it would be good for us to get out of our little bubble. I didn't argue, I rarely did. Lately, Kim had been in this phase of overcompensating, planning dinners, forcing social events, holding my hand in public in a way that felt like choreography. She vanished about an hour into the party, said she was catching up with someone from work. I didn't think much of it. Kim's always been the social one, the one who can hold a conversation in a room full of strangers without breaking a sweat. Me? I fade into the background. I'm the guy standing next to the wine cooler making small talk about Spotify Wrapped. I decided to go grab my coat. I figured I could Uber home, maybe blame a headache or pretend I wasn't feeling great. As I walked toward the hallway by the kitchen, that's when I heard her voice. It wasn't loud, not panicked, but the tone was different, not the kind you use with friends. It was low, measured, int***, mate. The kind of voice people use when they think no one else is listening. I slowed. Not on purpose, it just happened. My body stopped moving before my brain made the choice. I stood just outside the kitchen, obscured by the corner of the wall, near the fridge. Her voice came in and out, but the pieces I caught, they stuck. Just wait until after the holidays, she said. Everything will be easier then. A pause. A little laugh. Then, he doesn't notice anything, I swear. The silence after that felt louder than anything else in the room. I didn't hear a second voice, just hers. But there was no doubt she was speaking to someone. Someone who made her laugh like that. Someone she had to reassure. I should have walked in right then. Should have confronted her. But I didn't. I just stood there, heart thudding too fast, like I'd walked into the wrong room of my own life. Then the fridge door closed with a soft click, and Kim stepped into view. She had her phone in one hand, glass of red wine in the other, and a practiced smile already on her face. She didn't jump or look guilty. She didn't fumble. "Oh, hey," she said casually. "I was just talking to Lauren from work. She's pulling me into some client pitch next month. Total nightmare. You remember her, right?" I nodded slowly, still processing. Lauren from work. That's who I was supposed to believe she'd been talking to. Kim swirled the wine in her glass and took a small sip, eyes on me like she was studying a reaction before deciding how to steer the next part. "She's got me working on this whole rebranding campaign. One of those New Year, new identity things. Cheesy, but you know how it goes." I just stood there. I didn't know what to say. I wasn't even sure what I'd heard. The words were still replaying in my head. He doesn't notice anything. I managed a quiet, "Oh yeah," like I was still in character. "Yeah." She gave a light laugh, that same practiced, airy one, and added, "Marketing people are always pitching these ridiculous ideas around the holidays. Everyone's desperate to make the new quarter exciting." She moved closer, brushing past me lightly with her free hand on my arm. "You ready to go soon?" she asked as if nothing had happened. I nodded again. "Yeah, I think so." If I hadn't heard it, I would have believed her. She sounded so sure, so natural, not a single crack in her story. She didn't stammer or break eye contact. It was like watching someone perform a monologue they'd rehearsed a dozen times. But the words haunted me. Just wait until after the holidays. He doesn't notice anything. There was a time I might have laughed that off. Kim always joked that I missed the obvious. She used to say I'd lose my own head if it wasn't screwed on. But this wasn't a joke. Not the way she said it. Not the way she laughed after. The thing is, when you've been with someone long enough, you know their tones, the subtle differences between real and rehearsed. Kim has a customer service voice. She has a voice she uses when she's angry but pretending not to be. She has a voice she uses when she's being flirtatious. I heard a new voice tonight, and I knew what it meant. We didn't talk about it on the way home. She acted like everything was normal. Told me about Amanda's baby plans and how the wine was terrible. I nodded, smiled when appropriate, drove with both hands on the wheel so she wouldn't see how badly they were shaking. At one point, she reached over and rested her hand on mine. It used to be a comforting gesture. Tonight it felt like a question I didn't want to answer. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "Just tired." She nodded like she believed me, or maybe she didn't care if it was true. When we got home, she went straight to the bathroom to remove her makeup. I stood in the living room for a while, staring at our Christmas tree, blinking lights, a half-empty wine glass on the coffee table, the faint smell of pine still lingering. It all looked so normal. I wanted to confront her, ask who she'd really been talking to, ask what she meant by after the holidays. But I couldn't do it. Not yet. Because deep down I already knew. And hearing her say it out loud, that would make it real. So instead, I poured myself a glass of water, sat on the edge of the couch, and stared at my wife's phone sitting face down on the counter. Still glowing faintly. Still hiding something. That was the moment I realized I wasn't imagining it. Something had shifted. Something had cracked. And the person I thought I knew better than anyone, she'd been rehearsing a different script. After that night, everything looked different. Or maybe it was me who changed. Maybe once you hear something like that, once it lands in your gut and refuses to leave, you start seeing things that were always there, just waiting to be noticed. Kim didn't change overnight. It was subtle. That's what made it worse. If she had suddenly gone cold, if she had started picking fights or sleeping in the guest room, I could have called it what it was. But no, she was warm, attentive. Too attentive, maybe. She laughed more than usual, touched my arm more, asked if I wanted seconds during dinner, played our old playlists while cooking. The kind of things she used to do when we first started dating, except now they felt like a magician's misdirection. And her phone. Her phone used to live on the coffee table, or somewhere in the sheets between us, buzzing harmlessly with notifications neither of us paid attention to. Now, it was always with her. Not in the usual "I'm checking work emails" way, no, this was different. This was protective. Like it held something fragile. Or dangerous. The first time I noticed it, it was around 7 a.m. On a Tuesday. She was brushing her teeth, steam fogging up the mirror, and the sound of her ringtone echoed from the nightstand. Normally, she'd let it ring. But this time she darted out of the bathroom, foaming toothpaste still at the corners of her mouth, and snatched the phone like it was a grenade. "Wrong number," she said when she came back, not looking at me. She didn't explain who it was. Didn't have to. Then there were the showers. She started taking her phone with her. Not just into the bathroom, into the actual shower. I didn't even know phones could survive steam like that. At first I thought it was coincidence. But then it became habit. Every day. Same time. Same behavior. I once asked, casually, "Don't you worry about water damage?" She just shrugged. "They're waterproof now." She smiled. I didn't. One night, maybe a week later, she left it on the counter while she was in the backyard watering the plants. I didn't mean to touch it. I swear I didn't. But the screen lit up when I walked past. Just a message preview. No name. Just a number. It read, "Miss your voice today." Before I could even register what I was seeing, she came back inside. I let my hand fall casually to my side, like I'd just been stretching. But her eyes scanned the counter. The screen had gone black again. She picked it up, like it was an injured animal, and held it close to her chest as she walked past me. No words, just the sound of her footsteps, soft and deliberate. After that, I started paying attention. I started noticing when she left and how she returned. She began working late. That part wasn't suspicious on its own. Her job in design often demanded deadlines and late-stage approvals. But it was the pattern that got me. Always Tuesdays and Thursdays. Always pre-launch chaos. One night, around 9:30 p.m. She walked through the door wearing makeup that looked too fresh. Not smudged. Not faded. Not tired. Her lipstick was flawless, her eyeliner sharp, and she was wearing the navy blue dress, the one she saved for anniversaries, weddings, events where she knew all eyes would be on her. I looked up from the couch and said, "Didn't you wear that to our anniversary last year?" She blinked, surprised. Maybe at the question. Maybe at the fact that I remembered. "Oh, yeah," she said, setting her keys down. "I was meeting the client. They're more old school. Dress codes and all that." She kicked off her heels and walked into the kitchen. As she passed, a trail of perfume followed her. Not her usual scent. Something floral, lighter. The kind she used to wear when we first started dating. I sat there staring at the spot she had just occupied. I couldn't explain it, but something tightened in my chest. A knot, slow forming and stubborn. I thought about asking more questions, pushing harder, but every time I got close, she'd counter with laughter or affection. One night, when I mentioned how late she'd been coming home, she pulled me into a hug and whispered, "You're being paranoid, babe. Come on. I've just been busy. Don't go conspiracy theorist on me." Then she kissed me, slowly, and I hated that part of me still responded. Still wanted to believe her, but I started to feel like a ghost in my own home. I tested her once. Told her I was going to be out of town for a day, that I had a training session at the company's satellite office 2 hours away. It was a lie. I stayed in a hotel downtown instead. Close enough to come back. I wanted to see what she'd do when she thought I wasn't watching. That night, I drove back toward the house around 10:30. Lights were off in the front, but I noticed another car idling a block down. No plates I recognized. I waited, watched. About 15 minutes later, the car pulled away. Slowly. I waited another 10 before walking up the driveway. Kim was in the living room, curled up with a book, pajamas on, hair damp from a shower. "You're back early," she said, surprised. "Yeah," I said. "Finished sooner than expected." She smiled. "That's nice." She got up and kissed me on the cheek. But she didn't ask how the training went. Didn't ask where I stayed. Just shifted the conversation to dinner plans for the weekend. Like she already knew. Couldn't sleep that night. Not from guilt. From clarity. From the creeping confirmation that I wasn't crazy. I started thinking about how people fall apart. Not with explosions, but with excuses. With routines that get rewritten without your consent. With looks that last a second too long or not long enough. And Kim, she wasn't slipping. She wasn't trying to hide something. She was too calm. Too practiced. That's when I realized. She wasn't afraid of being caught. Not anymore. She didn't think I'd figure it out. Or maybe she didn't care if I did. I woke before the sun. Not from any alarm. Just that kind of raw, involuntary wakefulness that hits when your mind refuses to let go of the previous night. I'd barely slept. My body had been in bed, but my thoughts had circled endlessly. Around her smile when she walked in, the casual way she said, "I missed you," like it was a reflex, and the flicker of something else in her eyes. Guilt, maybe, or nothing at all. At some point around 5 a.m., I gave up. I threw on a sweatshirt, grabbed my keys, and stepped outside into the early grayness of morning. The cold air hit like clarity. The streets were empty, save for the occasional jogger or dog walker. I walked without a destination, just moved. My brain had too much static. Looping scenes, unfinished arguments, imaginary conversations I would never have the guts to say aloud. I passed a bakery just opening. The smell of fresh bread floated into the street. I thought about grabbing coffee, maybe a croissant, something to feel human, but I kept walking. My stomach was a knot and I wasn't ready for small talk. By the time I returned home, the sky was still dim but lighter. That dull, blue-tinted hour before the sun officially arrives. I expected her to be gone. Kim had told me last night, clearly, that she had an early start. Some creative team sync before the client call. "I'll be out by 6, she'd said. "Don't wait up." But her car was still in the driveway. At first, I thought maybe she'd overslept. That happens. People hit snooze. But something about it didn't sit right. The house was still. Too still. I unlocked the door quietly, as if I was the one sneaking in. The entryway light was off. Shoes in the same place. No movement. No sound. But there was a smell, faint but familiar. Not breakfast. Not soap. Something warmer. Masculine. Voices. Not loud but not hushed either. I followed the sound instinctively. Into the kitchen. And there he was. A man I'd never seen before, standing barefoot in my kitchen, wearing a faded gray t-shirt I didn't recognize. One of hers, I realized, based on the tiny embroidery near the hem. In his hands, her favorite mug. The one with the gold lettering. The one I gave her for her birthday last year. He was smiling, casual, at home, and she was standing next to him. Kim, in pajama shorts, the gray ones, and a fitted tank top. Light makeup, not quite done up, but enough that she didn't look like she just woke up. She was leaning against the counter watching him pour something, milk maybe, into her mug. She hadn't heard me yet. Then she reached out, touched his back lightly, the way you do when you know someone well, the way you don't do with someone you just met or someone you're trying to keep at arm's length. That single gesture did more damage than any word ever could. She turned her head and saw me. Her body went stiff, like something cracked inside her and froze her in place. Her eyes locked with mine, and in that split second, everything between us. The years, the shared secrets, the inside jokes, the arguments, the lazy Sunday mornings. All of it condensed into something sharp and unspoken. She opened her mouth slightly, maybe to say something, but she didn't. Neither did I. I didn't yell. I didn't ask questions. I didn't demand names or reasons or timelines, because I didn't need to. I had all the answers already. She blinked, a twitch of panic behind her expression. The man turned, finally noticing me, confusion washing over his face like a delayed reaction. He started, but that's as far as he got. I turned around, walked out, straight down the front steps. I didn't slam the door, didn't even close it hard. I think I wanted the sound to stay soft, like an ending I didn't want to hear. The air outside was colder now, brighter. I could hear birds, the kind of morning that was supposed to feel hopeful. But all I felt was empty. I walked to the end of the driveway, stood there for a second. My hands were shaking. I shoved them into my pockets. My throat was tight but dry, not the kind of tight that comes before tears. The kind that comes from truth. The kind you don't argue with. You just absorb it. I didn't look back at the house. Couldn't. The image of her, of them, was already burned into the back of my mind. And I knew, no matter what happened next, I wouldn't forget it. Not a single detail. Not the mug. Not the way she touched him. Not the way she looked at me. Like a woman who had just been caught between two worlds and didn't know which one to save. The worst part? She didn't flinch. She didn't run after me. Didn't call out. She just stood there. Let me go. Maybe she thought I needed time. Or maybe, and this is the part I'll never stop thinking about, maybe she was relieved. Relieved I saw it. Relieved she didn't have to keep lying. Relieved that I would be the one to walk away. Because in the end, it wasn't just a betrayal. It was a choice. And she made it. After that morning, I stopped being her husband. Technically, nothing changed. We still lived under the same roof. We still brushed past each other in the hallway, shared the same refrigerator, used the same towels. But something vital had been amputated, and we were both bleeding out in different corners of the same house, pretending it was just a scratch. She didn't try to deny what I saw. Not directly. Not with words. That somehow made it worse. There was no scene. No shouting match. No begging. Just silence. Not the angry kind. Not the kind that simmers with tension and accusations waiting to explode. No, this silence was colder. Still. Like the stillness after an accident. When the shock hasn't worn off and the world feels unnaturally quiet. That first day, she didn't go to work. Neither did I. We existed in separate orbits, orbiting the same void. I sat in the kitchen drinking coffee I didn't want, staring at the spot where he stood. She stayed in the bedroom. I could hear her moving sometimes, slowly, cautiously, like a guest in someone else's home. We didn't speak. Not even out of spite, just because there was nothing to say. And somehow that silence became routine. Days passed, then a week. The routine reshaped itself into something strange and unfamiliar. She would get up early, shower, leave for work without saying goodbye. I'd hear the front door close while I was still lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering when it had all stopped being ours. When she came home in the evenings, she moved around the house quietly, like she was trying not to wake someone who was always half asleep. She cooked, sometimes for both of us, sometimes just for herself. She'd plate something and leave it on the table without asking if I wanted any. No expectation, just a gesture. I'd eat it occasionally, not because I wanted to, but because hunger still existed, even when everything else felt suspended. Once, I found her sitting at the dining table, eating alone with earbuds in. She looked up, startled, when she saw me, paused whatever song or podcast was playing, gave me a soft smile, one that didn't reach her eyes, and offered, "There's more in the pan if you want." I nodded, didn't answer. We weren't fighting. We weren't even angry, not in the conventional sense. The rage had passed. The betrayal had become fact. And facts don't argue, they just exist. It was like living inside a museum exhibit of our marriage. All the pieces were still there, the framed photos, the throw pillows she picked out, the book I bought her that she never read. But now everything had a thin layer of dust on it. Once I opened our wedding album. I didn't mean to. I was looking for something else, something mundane. A charger, maybe. But there it was, tucked into the bottom of a drawer in the hallway. I sat down on the floor, cross-legged, and flipped through the pages like I was reading a story I'd forgotten I wrote. There was a photo of her laughing, veil caught in the wind, one hand reaching for mine, her eyes bright, honest, and for the first time in weeks I felt something. Not anger, not sadness, just a quiet ache, a sense of mourning, not for her, for us, the version of us that used to exist. That night, she left a plate of pasta on the counter with a napkin folded next to it. A small thing, insignificant, but I stood there staring at it like it was a message in a bottle. I didn't eat. I just covered the plate and put it in the fridge. Later, I heard her footsteps pause outside the kitchen, then retreat. This became our rhythm. She'd try in tiny, indirect ways. She'd leave a coffee mug by my seat at the table, mention that she was thinking of repainting the hallway, ask if I wanted to watch something we used to binge together. Each time I'd offer a polite response, a nod, maybe a sure, maybe nothing at all. I wasn't cruel. I wasn't punishing her. I was just gone. Not physically, but emotionally. Something inside me had folded in on itself. I didn't check her phone. I didn't ask who he was or if she was still seeing him. I didn't want details. What good would they do? Knowing his name wouldn't unruin anything. And the truth is, I didn't care about him. He wasn't the one who promised me forever. She was. And she was the one who looked me in the eye every day while slowly pulling the threads apart. One night, I heard her crying in the bathroom. Soft, suppressed. The kind of crying people do when they don't want to be heard. I stood outside the door, unsure of what I was supposed to feel. A part of me wanted to knock, ask if she was okay. Another part thought, she's not your problem anymore. I went back to bed. She emerged later, face freshly washed, pretending nothing had happened. She got in on her side, back turned to me. I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling. I kept wondering, was this what she wanted? Had she expected me to blow up? To throw things, scream, demand explanations? Was this quiet indifference worse? Because I wasn't giving her anything now. Not love, not hate, just vacancy. Sometimes I caught her looking at me. When she thought I wasn't paying attention, her eyes would linger too long, like she was trying to find something still alive in me. She never said sorry. Not once. Not directly. Instead, she tried to fill the void with gestures. She brought home my favorite beer, played the playlist we used to drive to, wore the perfume I once said reminded me of when we first met. It was like she was building a case in her head, trying to argue against the sentence she'd already handed down. But none of it worked, Because without truth, there's no foundation to rebuild anything on. It's just noise. Nice noise, but noise. Eventually, I stopped wondering if she'd say something. Stopped expecting her to confess, to explain, to apologize. Because people don't hide things by accident. And she didn't stumble into betrayal. She chose it. Again and again. She crossed the line, then redrew it. Crossed it again. Now she was trying to erase it altogether. But I saw it. I still see it. And I think she knows that. Because despite her efforts, despite the coffee and the playlists and the cautious smiles, she never tried to say, "I love you." Not once. And maybe that silence said more than any apology ever could. There's a strange shift that happens when guilt turns into performance. I don't know the exact day it started, but I remember the feeling, the sense that she had entered a new role. Not wife, not partner, not even the woman I used to fall asleep next to. Something else entirely. An actress, maybe. A version of herself that existed only to win the audience back. And I was the audience. It began subtly. A meal cooked just the way I liked it. Lasagna from scratch. She hadn't made it in over a year. When I walked into the kitchen, she was already plating it, the table set with our old wine glasses. The ones we got as a wedding gift and never used. She looked up, smiled like nothing was wrong. "I thought we could eat together tonight," she said softly. I stared at the food. Smelled good. Comforting. Familiar. I nodded, sat down, said thank you. She poured the wine, my favorite one, which she always said was too dry, and filled my glass a little more than hers. We ate mostly in silence. But she was watching me, carefully, not lovingly, like someone waiting for a verdict. Every forkful I took seemed to lift a weight off her shoulders. After dinner, she cleared the plates and asked if I wanted to watch something together. "You remember that docuseries we started?" she asked. "The one about the art thief?" I did. We never finished it. Life got in the way. Or maybe betrayal did. I couldn't remember anymore which came first. "Maybe another night," I said. She nodded, too quickly, already retreating into the kitchen. I heard her rinse dishes for longer than necessary. That was the start of it. The next morning, she made breakfast. French toast, bacon, coffee already brewed when I came downstairs. She was wearing one of my old hoodies. The gray one she always said was too big, but wore anyway when she wanted to feel extra close. Felt deliberate now. Prop in a scene. A symbol meant to say something without having to speak it out loud. I sat. I thanked her. She smiled like she'd won something. This became a pattern. Grand gestures masquerading as casual moments. One day I came home to find candles lit, music playing, a reservation email open on her laptop for a weekend cabin getaway. Just the two of us. She walked into the living room holding 2 mugs. "I thought we could use a reset," she said. "You know, just time to breathe. Get away from everything." I looked at her. She was wearing makeup, not too much, but enough to look like she tried. A soft pink lipstick. Hair curled slightly at the ends, like she'd Googled romantic second chance look. "I can't," I said. She blinked. "Why not?" "I've got too much going on at work." She nodded, but I could see it in her face. The brief flicker of disappointment she tried to blink away. She smiled again, softer this time. "Another weekend, maybe?" I didn't answer. She started calling her mother more often. I overheard pieces of the conversations. "I'm trying," she'd whisper. "He's distant, but I don't blame him." "No, I haven't told him everything yet. I don't know how." Then, I know. I just thought maybe if I show him I care, he'll come back." I never asked what her mom said. I didn't need to. Her gestures became louder. She cleaned out the closet, reorganized everything, folded my shirts the way I liked, even repaired a missing button on a shirt I hadn't worn in months. She bought new sheets. Our old ones had been too worn, she said. These were soft, white, crisp, hotel-like. She cooked more, played our wedding song once while vacuuming, hummed along to it. She'd send texts during the day. "Hope your morning's going okay, Red Heart. Thinking about you. Do you want something sweet for dessert tonight?" I never ignored her, but I didn't encourage it either. I'd reply simply, "Thanks. It's fine. Sure." Each time she tried a little harder, like she thought if she stacked enough bricks, I'd forget the foundation had already crumbled. Her mother called me once. I almost didn't pick up. When I answered, she sounded tired, sad. "She regrets it, John," she said. "I know that doesn't fix it, but I thought you should hear it." I thanked her, politely, briefly. That night, Kim made chicken marsala, the one dish we used to make together. I remembered standing in the kitchen barefoot, wine in one hand, music playing while she chopped mushrooms. That memory used to feel warm. That night, it felt like a movie someone else had lived through. She handed me a plate without a word, lit 2 candles, sat down. "I miss this," she said quietly. I didn't answer. She tried again. "I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm just trying to remind you, we had good things too." I looked at her, really looked at her for the first time in days. Her eyes were wet, not crying, just holding something back. But there was something else, something missing, the truth. Not once had she looked me in the eye and told me what happened. Not even the basic shape of it. No confession, no acknowledgement, just gestures, smiles, effort, as if doing enough nice would erase the wrong. And that's when it hit me. She wasn't rebuilding trust. She was rebuilding comfort. She wanted me to be okay enough to stop asking questions, to pretend the picture had never cracked. She wanted to resume the story without rewriting the chapter. But I couldn't do that. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even waiting for revenge. I just didn't know how to be in the same room with her and not see what I saw. One night, I woke up to find her sitting on the edge of the bed, looking at me. She didn't realize I was awake. She just stared, like she was looking for something, signs of life maybe, the version of me that used to wake up and kiss her shoulder, whisper good morning, ask how she slept. But I wasn't that man anymore. She had buried him, and now she was trying to resurrect someone else in his place. But the thing about grief is, once you cross a certain line, you can't go back. You can only move through. She crawled back under the covers, careful not to touch me. I heard her breathing, steady, maybe pretending to be asleep, maybe hoping I'd roll toward her. I didn't. The next morning, she made pancakes. Blueberry, my favorite. I said thank you, ate half, left the rest. She sat across from me, hair messy, oversized sweatshirt falling off one shoulder. She looked tired, like someone trying to smile through a marathon she never trained for. Then, after a long pause, she said, "I don't expect you to love me right now." Silence. "But I hope someday you can see how hard I tried to fix it." I looked at her, and all I could think was, "You're fixing the parts that don't matter."